Hi, it's Carrie. Today's 5-Minute Friday will be just the briefest overview of a database called Embase. I haven't talked about it much because I haven't had access to it until recently. I did have access to it in a previous job, and then I didn't, and then I got it back, so I'm thrilled because it's a great resource. It's equivalent to PubMed in many ways in that you would use it to look for medical and health research. It's indexed very well for drugs and for medical devices. It's got some unique bells and whistles, and it uses a controlled vocabulary called Mtree. So while PubMed and Medline use MESH, medical subject headings, then Embase uses Mtree, so they're two completely different sets of controlled vocabulary. And if you are trying to be a thorough searcher, it's important to look at both if you have access to Embase. It is an expensive product, however, so not everybody's going to have access. If you're a Towson University affiliate, you'll have access to Embase through our databases button here on the left. And if you are affiliated with another institution, you'll want to check with your library. I'm going to search for Embase here in the top right-hand corner. And I'm going to go to Embase. I made it a little bit bigger, but this is what it looks like. And you'll see different ways to search up here. So they're giving you a lot of bonus functions. PICO, nurses are familiar with this. This is patient or problem, intervention or exposure, comparison, control, and outcome. So it's a pretty common way that med students and other health practitioners are taught to search. PV Wizard is pharmacovigilance. This is for medical devices, drugs, disease, device, citation information, and normally I start searching in advanced. But you can also do what you do anywhere else, which is just enter some keywords. I don't like the one they've provided for us. I'm going to stick with one that I've used in the past, which is pressure ulcers. And you probably really should be learning to use Boolean operators. So I'm going to say pressure ulcer and positioning. I'm going to ignore this down here because what it's trying to get us to do is map to Mtree headings. But really I just want to take an exploratory look first. I'm going to use the Boolean operator and I'm going to type positioning. And you just click out of there. I don't like those suggestions, which is why I am usually in advanced. If you prefer to search in a way that you're more familiar with, like the EBSCO databases have those search boxes, you can add fields here and you can choose which fields you want to search in. So let's say we were interested in the title abstract search, we can continue on. But I just built it here in the first box. And we'll show those results. Now we're going to see what happened with our search. And here's what happened with the search. And once you get used to reading Embase syntax, it will make more sense to you. It took the terms that I entered and mapped them. So when you see /exp, that's explosion, and it's implying that this is a Mtree term. I know that it's not an Mtree term, but it maps to the Mtree term decubitus. It's also searching pressure ulcer as a phrase, and then it's breaking it up into pressure, which is also an Mtree term, or pressure as a keyword, and ulcer. It's telling me positioning, exp, so positioning should be an Mtree term or mapped to an Mtree term, and positioning as a keyword, and we got 1,152 results. Now I'm ready to make this a little smaller. You have lots of ways to limit on the left, which are things that I will probably cover at another time, because what I really wanted to show you today was Mtree. So like Medline uses Mesh, Embase uses Mtree, and it's up here in the top right here. So when we search here, we're not searching for literature, we're searching for terms. And the nice thing about Mtree is that it has a lot of terms and a lot of suggestions for terms. So I'm going to type pressure ulcer, and it's telling me use decubitus instead. That's our term for pressure ulcer. And then they're saying pressure ulcer scale for healing is a candidate term. And I guess because it's a candidate term, it does have 23 records that come back. We're going to use decubitus. And then we get taken to the tree. So if you have watched any of my videos on MESH, medical subject headings, you know that there's a tree involved with those as well. Skin ulcer is broader. Skin disease is even broader. Physical disease by anatomical structure is broader. And we're going all the way up to diseases. Now, under decubitus, we have medical device-related pressure ulcer. And we also have pressure necrosis. Now, over here on the right is where you can take these into the search and make something happen. So it's telling you with decubitus exploded, which means it's going to search these terms as well. You're going to get 26,918 results. But what you really would probably want to do first is maybe copy some of these synonyms. Okay. This new interface always confuses me. So you can try any of these. You can take it to the disease search. You can add the query builder. There it is. So add the query builder gives us a place where we can start to build the search. And then we can say or and paste all the synonyms we just copied. Isn't that lovely? Now, if you really are an expert searcher, you're going to be bothered by the fact that there are no field tags here. So I put those terms in quotes. And I'm going to say colon, TIAB. You can look at the help guide to see what other fields are available to you. I believe KW for keyword and DE for descriptor are all available to us. And you would probably want to think of even more terms. I think there are even more terms. For example, I see pressure injury, but I don't see pressure injuries. I see pressure ulcer, but I don't see pressure ulcers. So this would need some work. But we went from 28-something thousand with just the Mtree term alone. With our additional keywords now, we're getting 33,400. And because I have them in quotes, and because I've applied fields here, and this one has the explode field, then it shouldn't map. It should do exactly what I've told it to do, I hope. We'll click Show Results. Now, you've probably seen me do this before because I think I did show you how to translate into Embase, how to translate searches into Embase. So you'd be adding additional concepts to this. You're not just looking at pressure injury, you're looking at pressure injury and positioning. So let's go back and see if positioning is the right term. It's a candidate term, but they currently have patient positioning, which is also relevant here. They have positioning device and positioning sensors. Maybe any of those would be relevant, but they'd all be captured with the keyword positioning. So let's go with this main one here. And again, it's looking at the tree, we see that it's the narrowest term on the tree. Patient care is broader. And we can show the results, or we can first work with the query builder. This time I'm going to do it manually because these synonyms are pretty straightforward. We'll add the query builder. Oh, so what it did here, this is important to take note, is it kept our old search. Well, guess what? We don't want that. We're going to combine them later, not now. We want our positioning search. So I'm just going to add positioning. Let's do position or positioning or prone, proning. I love language. I love words. Sorry. All right, we're going to nest those keyword terms again and just do the same thing here and say, let's put those in the title, the abstract, the keywords, or the descriptors, and we will show our results. Okay, so with our first one, pressure ulcer and positioning, we got 1,152 results. It did some automatic term mapping, although that's not what they call it, but it did some term mapping behind the scenes. Then I created my own concept for decubitus and my own concept for positioning based on the terms that were available by looking in Mtree. And so now we're ready for the end result. We're going to click on the box next to number 2 and the box next to number 3. Once you have 2 or more selected, you're going to see that combine button light up, and make sure you're using the right operator here. We want and we'll click on combine. So I'm not saying more is better, but more usually is better when you're doing evidence-based medicine and evidence-based practice, at least for some methodologies. Also, I'd prefer that people see the things that are written instead of limiting themselves to just like the terms you can think of. But there are ways to limit, as I've mentioned. So we get way more with our nicely created, somewhat more systematic search than we did with the mapping that happened on the first one. And then you can look through them. You can sort them by relevance, by author, by publication year. And even without signing in, my terms get highlighted. Now, the interesting thing about Embase is some people say it's over-indexed. That might be true. But if you click on index terms, the chevron here, it'll show you what caught this. So it has decubitus as a disease term. It has patient positioning and prone ventilation as Mtree terms. Whoops, not. You can look at the abstract, but I like to look at the index terms at first just to see. So maybe I should have included supine. This has decubitus, but we don't see anything about positioning in the terms. If we look at the abstract, we do see positioning. So searching this way does give you sort of a safety net for finding things that may not have been mentioned or indexed correctly, etc. This is already much longer than a 5-Minute Friday, so I hope this got you a little bit more familiar with Embase, and I'll see you next time.